50s. Tonight, lingering clouds, lows upper 30s. A dry, cool day Saturday, highs upper 40s. Could see a morning flurry or two Sunday, then much colder by Monday. Get ready for that next blast of cold air with Dodge City Ski Shop, featuring the largest selection of cold weather clothing around. From toddlers to adults, they have it all at Dodge City, East Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. And I'm Sorgene Twelve's Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240. Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
The Boy Scouts are becoming lug butt heaven. There's a story out of Nashville reported on TV3's website about a Boy Scout leader accused of raping a boy. Over several years, the young man is 17 years old, and the man had become a father figure to him, according to the report, and had gained his trust and confidence as to what is right and true. However, the Boy Scouts, having accepted gay theory and the subjective concepts of right and wrong, where right and wrong is judged a matter of personal opinion and personal preference. Even your own sex is a matter of your own opinion. There are no objective standards, and however, there is a seeming objective standard as to what is rape and as to what is an authority figure and what is called undue influence. A young man, a child, cannot give consent to a sexual act. He's incapable of it because of his juvenility, right? Because of his youth, his incapacity that comes with childishness, childish things, childish ways, his lack of maturity. And so he cannot say yes to an importune troop leader who wants to put the fire out and keep the embers down. This is David Tulis. We are at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, and we are the station in which you report and the world decides. We've got America's Morning News in the morning, very early, and we have also, I'm on every morning 9 to 11. I do thank you very much for giving me just a couple of minutes of your time and having a friend hear about our station. We are the station that has me as one of its minor stars, and I'm also the editor of a very unpopular website. Just so you know, it's unpopular because very few people matter, and very few people need to read what is written at Nooganomics.com, the website of which I'm the mild-mannered editor, and I'm the editor of that web portal with these hands formerly stained with printer's ink, and I write there, try to write something every day, post something most days, and explore local economy and the free market. That's my area of argument, and I'm trying to help my listener and my reader think in terms of the future. Have an action plan, right? Have an action plan. Have control your own destiny, that kind of thing. Though often what I offer is not investment advice. I don't pick stocks or anything like that, but I offer a perspective which I hope is realistic, and I hope is just skeptical enough of human goodwill and human kindness to make you suspicious and to make you one who says no, right? Just say no. Walmart is going to be saying no to 16,000 people who are going to be losing their jobs at any of 269 stores around the world, and they'll be looking for work, and hopefully they'll find something. If you, my listener, have a broken cell phone, make sure you go to Cell Surgeon, which is right next to the Old Chicago's Pizza at the front side of Hamilton Place, of Northgate Mall, and have your cell phone repaired there, or your smart device. That's Cell Surgeon. The number is 668-0100. That's 668-0100. We're going to talk now with an environmentalist who has great credentials and who is in Nashville. His name is John Noel. He's a businessman. He's a preservationist. He has he's on numerous boards, the Climate Institute, for example, the Tennessee Conservation Voters Organization as well, the Tennessee Parks and Greenways Committee, He's involved in clean energy and is the president of the 8-state regional Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, or SACE. That's SACE. And John Noel is. I have some questions for John Noel on a topic that's of environmental nature. We here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio cover this topic as news, and we're trying to use our eyes, our ocular scientific devices. In each, we all have two of them. Those are our eyes. We're using our eyes to look at the sky and look at weather patterns, and look also at the press that proposes, the scientific press as well proposes, that what we're seeing in the skies over Chattanooga as yesterday in the extreme trail work and the creation of very muzzy gray clouds that reflect the sun in a very marvelous coat of many colors fashion, that this is part of the war on global warming. And John Noel, are you there?
I'm here.
Well, thanks for joining us. Tell us just briefly what your background is. You're an environmental activist. You've been involved in the coal wars for some time, have you not?
That's true. And I think what I would probably call it is not so much of a war, but more of a understanding that we can do better than burning fossil fuels that are affecting our atmosphere and hence our climate.
Well, in a nutshell, what does the burning of coal do as far as it being a pollutant? What's the main hazard of it?
Well, the essence of it is that it's two hazards in coal, and it depends on the equipment that's on the coal burning power plant. One is soot that could come from it, which could actually go into snow-covered areas and put a black surface on the snow, little flecks of black, which would enhance the melting of the snow, which wouldn't have occurred if that black soot was not there. The most important one, however, is what's known as carbon. It's a gas. It comes off, you can't smell it, you can't see it, and it goes all the way up to the stratosphere. And it hangs around there for a long time, hundreds of years in some cases, and it bonds with molecules, which when the sunlight comes through the atmosphere and hits the earth and bounces back, it captures some of that returning heat and doesn't let it back out like it usually would if it didn't have so much carbon in the atmosphere. That's what's called the greenhouse effect. That's the simplest explanation. There's more to it than that. But the essence of it is that coal is the dirtiest form of fuel that we could use on the planet. Second would be oil, and third would be gas. The best forms of energy would be clean, and that would be in the neighborhood of solar, geothermal, wind energy, etc.
So the concern you have is for the burning of coal. And now when coal is burned, describe briefly the process. It's burned in giant furnaces at utility plants, say those run in our area by the Tennessee Valley Authority. What happens when coal is burned? What are the waste products that we want to talk about?
Well, I think the one that you and I had talked about that you wanted to cover was the waste product, of course, is what I just previously described, and it is the most damaging because it affects our climate. The waste product itself, after the coal is burned, is much like burning logs in a fire. When fire is done and all over, you have ash. And so you take that ash and it's got to go somewhere. And most of the ash is deposited after they clean out the furnaces to take the ash that's really generally very close by. That was for efficiency and cost. And of course, most all coal-fired power plants are located on waterways, and waterways are where the coal ash is primarily stored. There are literally 100 of coal ash storage places all around. For example, in Nashville, Tennessee, we've got the Gallatin plant. It's somewhere just north of Nashville, virtually within sight of downtown, and it stores coal ash. And now what has been discovered is that there are, over the 50 years that it's been there, they've discovered sinkholes and all sorts of things, and this leachate, they call it, from the coal ash begins to work its way into the Cumberland River, which is a drinking source of water for all of Nashville and surrounding counties. So it doesn't make sense to take waste and put it into our water. And being able to dispose of coal ash is difficult. Another part of coal ash is if it's dry, a big wind can come along and pick up that coal ash, put it into the air, and somebody breathes it. Coal ash is toxic. It's got all sorts of different toxins in it, from lead to cadmium to selenium to arsenic. And in concentrations, it can be very harmful to human health.
So when a coal plant burns coal, it has huge furnaces. There's the stack where the fumes go out. These fumes are under strict regulation. So the coal industry, the energy industry, has to trap these ashes as they go out and not allow them to go up. So you have bottom ash, which is heavy, and the light ash that you described as being subject to wind-borne, being swept off by the wind. That's called the coal fly ash. And fly, I guess, implies that it's very light. It can go airborne easily, right?
Actually, I don't know the answer to that. You may have taught me something.
Well, I'm just supposing.
I never knew why they called it light.
I'm supposing.
Anyway, the idea is, as you've described it rather correctly, and it is a waste product that is unfortunate, and that's one of the reasons I indicated that coal is the dirtiest form of energy that we use. Hence, we must figure out a way to use the cleanest form if we want to preserve the integrity of our planet.
Well, let's just talk briefly. John Noel, you were the Nashville preservationist and environmentalist. Tell us just briefly about two disasters that have happened just in the past 7 years or so. One in Tennessee and one in North Carolina, where coal fly ash and bottom ash got away. Tell us what happened at Kingston quickly.
Well, Kingston was, which is the plant just outside of Knoxville. They stored what is known as wet coal ash. You got wet and dry, and of course, wet is heavier, and so they would build essentially berms or dams for when they would extract the coal ash from the power plant, which can be seen from I-40 going into Knoxville. You can see mounds of coal. You can see part of what used to be there until one day the dam burst. And when it did, it went into the river systems nearby and contaminated the systems. It was devastating to anyone that was in its path. It was like an avalanche of coal ash. And it just spread out for miles, and it still affects the rivers. But the basics is it costs TVA over $1 billion, and they're still cleaning it up. And to their credit, they are cleaning it up. But it was unnecessary for their financial bottom line, and it's unnecessary for the public. Had we understood that the toxicity of coal ash, we would have probably handled it differently. But it kind of got started that way. It was close. It was cheap. Put it right next to the plant, and hence that disaster happened. North Carolina, without getting into detail, had similar, but it was a different kind of release. But essentially, the dam broke and it got loose.
And that was in 2014, and that was near Eden, North Carolina. Well, coal ash is
right.
is bad as you're describing it. It's not a hazardous material. That was ruled on in 2000 by the EPA. Right, is that right? 2000 or 2014 rather. That was declared to be not a hazardous waste. A long regurgitation period for that declaration to be found. However, there are many toxic things in coal ash and in fly ash. That being said, though, there is an industrial purpose in this waste, and my listener needs to be aware that I've proposed as a writer and a journalist covering the environment in Chattanooga that the coal fly ash is part of stratospheric aerosol geoengineering. Now, you, John Noel, I'm going to ask you about what your view is on that, but coal fly ash is highly useful. Most of it, well, about 40% of it is recycled in various things. How is coal fly ash used industrially in many, many applications? What does that market look like?
Well, I'm not an expert on that, David. I wish I were. There is a number of schools of thought that, in fact, the declaration of EPA declaring that coal ash is not a hazardous material is questionable. That's my view, particularly when you and I both know that the ingredients I mentioned before that are all toxic elements are in it. So where you use it and how you use it. If you were to mix it with concrete and essentially encapsulate it, perhaps that's okay. But if you're mixing it with concrete and spreading it out on a surface so that it comes in contact with both the elements as well as people, that would be questionable in my opinion. There are a number of uses, but it's not uses like sand. If you're going to make concrete, sand would be an inert process, which is usually the way it's meant and made. But the coal fly ash is mixed in with some of that to supplement some of the processes. Again, I would declare my inability to be specific simply because I'm not as knowledgeable on that other than what I've just expressed.
Well, my listener can go to Wikipedia and just look up coal ash or coal fly ash and find that there's a lengthy report about how it's used in Portland cement. It's used in embankments, soil stabilization, in flowable fill. That sounds pretty dangerous, John Noel. Asphalt, concrete, geopolymers, in bricks. It's even used in toothpaste, in railroad ties. It's found is used as a binding agent. And the Romans, when they built the aqueducts, used something like coal fly ash. They used ash from volcanoes in Italy. So it does have uses in that direction. But the question I want to ask you, John Noel, you've been involved with coal and the coal industry for years. What do you make of the paper that came out just recently by Dr. J. Raymond Herndon of San Diego, suggesting that with 98% certainty, coal fly ash is the material used for injections of cloud cover by jets in a program which has not been reported on in the standard press, but which is ostensibly part of the war on global warming to create cloud cover to deflect the sunlight. At least that's part of the theory anyway. What do you make of that, and what's the possibility of there being a connection?
Well, I don't believe it, because it would move into the conspiracy theory category. I mean, I respect certainly Dr. Herndon's research, but I don't practically see how it actually happens. For example, I think there was some suggestion that the jets that are flying around are releasing it. Well, if it's a passenger jet, you and I know that they don't really have a method of doing that. And I think that every airline would, since it's illegal and it would fly in the face of the Clean Air Act,
right,
I would doubt that any commercial airline would want to use that no matter what they're paid.
Or any other.
The suggestion is, sorry, go ahead.
Or sorry, the commercial airlines or any other pilot or organization flying around would refuse to inject coal fly ash in the sky because it would violate the Clean Air Act. That's what you're saying, essentially, right? No one would want to violate the Clean Air Act.
And it's not a proven science. It's not like the scientists came out and say, hey, this is really a great idea. Everybody go do it. I think the science would actually be in the reverse of that. Geoengineering, and the explanation of that is that if we've got climate change, what is it we can spray into the atmosphere that would help keep the Earth from getting warmer? As we know, the Earth has gotten warmer essentially every single year for the past 15 years and prior to that. And, the Earth is in fact getting hotter. So geoengineering is being discussed amongst the scientific community, but most of the scientists that I know are very skeptical, simply because the cure could be worse than the disease.
So you're saying any scientists are skeptical that anything can be injected into the atmosphere to do something with the sun. And it sounds like what you said earlier, that pollution traps heat. And it seems that geoengineering would do the same thing. If this program were in effect now, it would exacerbate global warming because it might deflect some sunlight, but it would certainly trap heat that would otherwise be deflected out into outer space during the nighttime.
Probably not. It probably would work on some basis, simply because the coal ash wouldn't do what the carbon gas, in other words, when that invisible gas, when you burn a lump of coal that goes up into the atmosphere, that gas stays up there. But if you release fly ash into the cloud layers, which is not up into the stratosphere, it would be below that, it would eventually fall back to the earth. So it would be temporary compared to what burning the coal producing carbon, which would be the gas that goes up and stays up. So, maybe there is some validity to the fact that it could temporarily do something. But again, I look upon it as the cure is worse than the disease because of its toxicity and also the likely ineffectiveness of it. What we have to do is to stop burning coal and start looking at cleaner forms of energy. That's the way to fix it, and need to do it pretty quickly.
And also, you're suggesting that a geoengineering program being extant is not really possible because it would have to be secret. It would have to be effectively a conspiracy, and that's not likely, you're saying.
Well, I think Dr. Herndon, is that right, Herndon?
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Herndon, I believe, is speculating that it could be the U.S. military that's doing it, and of course they have the ability to do that. But my hunch is that they don't want to do that. The Pentagon has declared global warming, climate change, to be the number one threat to security.
12 minutes and 40 seconds. We'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect lots of clouds for your Friday. A few spotty showers possible. Most of the rain, though, well to our south and east. Highs lower 50s. Tonight, lingering clouds, lows upper 30s. A dry, cool day Saturday. Highs upper 40s. Could see a morning flurry or two Sunday, then much colder by Monday. Get ready for that next blast of cold air with Dodge City Ski Shop, featuring the largest selection of cold weather clothing around. From toddlers to adults, they have it all at Dodge City, East Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. And I'm Storm Team 12's Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
On your signature, you can get $150,000. Can you believe that? $150,000 on your signature. Hi, I'm Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source. There's a program right now that you can get $150,000 on your signature with no pledge of collateral or personal guarantee. Call me at 423-875-5621 to learn more. 423-875-5621. You've been thinking about starting a business and becoming self-sufficient. Don't do it on your own. I have a proven track record for the last 13 years, a 96% success rate. I can guide you into a franchise where you will pay yourself through the startup phase with very low or little risk. Call me now. I'm Bruce Krebs at 423-875-5621. 875-5621. And make sure to listen to the Entrepreneur Hour every other Wednesday from 11 to 12 o'clock here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Call me now, 875-5621.
From all of us here at Hot News Talk Radio, thank you for patronizing our sponsors. It's important that you support people that support and advertise with Hot News Talk Radio, so we can continue to deliver the outstanding programs that you desire. And if you'd like to advertise on Hot News Talk Radio, you can email us at hotnewstalkradio@gmail.com. That's hotnewstalkradio@gmail.com. Or call 423-458-5563. That's 458-5563.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Candidates not holding back during last night's Republican face-off on the Fox Business Network. Donald Trump continuing to pound Ted Cruz on the issue of whether he's allowed to be president.
You have great constitutional lawyers that say you can't run. If there was and you know, I'm not bringing a suit, I promise. But the Democrats are going to bring a lawsuit. And you have to have certainty. You can't have a question.
The Canadian-born Cruz slamming back that Trump ignored the eligibility questions last year.
The Constitution hasn't changed. But the poll numbers have.
The Dow dropping more than 300 points at the open following global markets south. And a search and rescue operation underway after two CH-53E choppers collided off the coast of Oahu. There was a total of 12 on board. Fox News, we report.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. In the Ottawa High School rape case, 3 adults have now been charged with failure to report child abuse. County School Superintendent Rick Smith said on Thursday that the 3 are suspended without pay pending the completion of the investigation. They are the head coach, Andre Montgomery, assistant coach, Carl Williams, and the athletic director, Jesse Nyadli. Hamilton County Juvenile Court documents also suggest that there may be 4 victims, not just the one. 4 freshman basketball players were reportedly subjected to apparent sexual assault and being struck with a pool cue. One player required emergency surgery after the injuries he received while at a rental cabin. Hypothermia has been listed as a cause of death for a 13-month-old child who was left in a car for 5 hours by the grandmother. An investigation is still underway. The identity of the Powerball jackpot winner is still not known, but the location where the Powerball ticket was bought is known, and the owner has received $25,000. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect lots of clouds for your Friday. A few spotty showers possible. Most of the rain, though, well to our south and east. Highs lower 50s. Tonight, lingering clouds, lows upper 30s. A dry, cool day Saturday. Highs upper 40s. Could see a morning flurry or two Sunday, then much colder by Monday. Get ready for that next blast of cold air with Dodge City Ski Shop, featuring the largest selection of cold weather clothing around. From toddlers to adults, they have it all at Dodge City, East Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. And I'm Swarteen 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
When the weather turns bad, turn to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. On the net, hotnewstalkradio.com. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. From the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center. Chattanooga, we've got you covered. When the weather turns bad, the Tennessee Valley turns to Hot News Talk Radio.
Go, 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 go. You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Tulis.
Is the state bound by law or is it not? That's the question that the effort now underway to bring into our statutes the Tennessee Natural Marriage Defense Act asks. Is the state bound by law or is it bound by the whim of elected officials such as Bill Haslam, our governor, appointed officials such as Herbert Slattery III, both men Presbyterians and Presbyterian elders out of Knoxville? Are they bound by the law of God? Are they bound by the Constitution, which chains them to the rule of constitutional government, allows them to be servants of a free people? In our Constitution, we're described as a free people in what we also call a free state. We have a free state. We have what's called free government. These are terms out of our Constitution. And what free means, they're not bound by individuals. They're not bound by interests. They're not bound by cabals or groups or combinations. They're bound by the clear and bright rule of law, which imposes a limit upon the government and also upon the state. Here in Tennessee for the legislative session is Cal Zastrow. He's from Bay City, Michigan. And he has gotten greatly interested in a very important volume that I'm holding up here for my viewer on YouTube. It's The Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrates by Matthew Truella. It's a vital law book. This is a law book that has a great deal of history and an explanation of how it is that a lesser official, let's say Bill Knowles, our county clerk, how a lesser official can stand in defiance in good faith and in the law of a greater official who is ordering him or making suggestions that he violate his oath to the Constitution and violate the Constitution itself. Well, Kel Zastrow, what is the remedy to Obergefell versus Hodges, the poofter and lug butt opinion, as I call it? Lug butt is LGBT. What is the remedy to this poofter decision out of the third branch of the federal government? What are you proposing?
Well, what we're proposing is for Tennessee and all other states to just uphold the law. Courts do not make laws. The Congress makes federal law. State legislature makes state law. And elected city officials make city ordinances. So policemen cannot pull you over and while you're driving your car and say, hey, you got a bag of Kroger groceries in the back seat. I want those. Oh, and you were speeding? Okay, I'll shoot you in the foot. Elected officials, appointed officials are responsible to uphold the law, not what their opinion is, not even what a court opinion is. They're responsible to uphold the law. So currently what's happening is the U.S. federal court, the Supreme Court out of Washington, D.C., 5 out of 9 judges have said that the Constitution of Tennessee, in fact, no state constitution has any merit whatsoever if you define marriage. We are going to define marriage, and we define marriage as whatever you want it to be. Doesn't have to be a man and a woman. Like your Constitution says, it can be a man and a man and a woman, or who knows what else they're going to go for soon. So what we're doing here in Tennessee is there's been legislation introduced. Mark Pody in the House and May Beavers in the Senate have introduced the Tennessee Natural Marriage Defense Act, House Bill 1412, Senate Bill 1437, which will say that we will uphold the law here in Tennessee, and we do not recognize this Supreme Court decision as canceling out our Constitution and canceling out our laws. We're going to continue to uphold the law.
Well, my listener has
excellent.
We're talking with Kel Zastrow. My listener has a question, and the question is this: if we have a Constitution that says we are a state in which marriage is recognized, why do we need a bill to say the same thing? How is a bill going to enforce or encourage or make mightier and brighter our Constitution, which already is unmistakable on the point of marriage?
Well, what we're doing is we're mobilizing and unifying the whole state together. Like in Kentucky last September, when the federal judge threw the county clerk, Kim Davis, in jail because she would not break the law and issue marriage licenses to homosexuals in Kentucky. He just threw her in jail. He had no law. He just threw her in jail. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that the state of Kentucky will protect, will defend, will pay for, and will provide for the county clerks who uphold the Constitution, who uphold the law. If the feds come after them, if a federal judge or federal marshals or whatever come after us in Tennessee, then we are uniting together as a state to defend them. That's what is necessary, and that's what we're going to do. Well, we should have already been doing that, but what we're doing is we're mobilizing the state legislature right now to clearly say we're going to defend, as a whole state, we're going to uphold our Constitution.
So the bill is a sign of resolve. There's a bit of history in this bill. It talks about various efforts in American constitutional history to reject lawless opinions and for states to kind of go their own way as against rules by the federal government. This is David Tulis, and we're going to be doing a special report at 11 today on lies, deceit, and county cover-ups. We're going to tie in the impact of social media and sexual abuse in the public school. We have a call coming in. Hang on. This is David Tulis. You're on the air live with Cal Zastrow, who is here defending the Tennessee Natural Marriage Defense Act. What's on your mind?
Great topic. I have a couple of comments, though. First of all, I'm against homo marriage. There is no such thing. Secondly, I'm so happy the Supreme Court ruled the way they did, because they ruled the correct way. You're on the wrong side of the law. States have no authority to issue licenses. When is the state going to get that through their head. You can't issue a birth license, the common law right. You can't issue a marriage license. The Supreme Court was absolutely 100% correct. If the state is going to issue licenses, which is permission to do something that was otherwise illegal, they cannot, under the 14th Amendment, which applies to the states, to the Bill of Rights, discriminate against a class of people who the government deems to be protected. You're going to lose. You're going to lose.
All right. What is the answer to that objection? That the comment is, you my listeners, that the Obergefell versus Hodges decision is correct, because if the state is going to issue any license at all regulating something which is a common law right, then it really cannot discriminate in favor of male, female marital unions.
I'd be all in favor of going back to the common law on that. But what happens is the state of Tennessee is responsible to recognize and uphold their Constitution. The state of Tennessee is responsible to define what they do. The federal government must stick to their enumerated powers. And when they step outside of those enumerated powers, then that's become lawless tyranny. And the federal Supreme Court cannot trump state constitutions, and they can issue opinions and they can issue directions, but they cannot cancel out state constitutions and what people do in the states. So if the state has always been involved in families, it's always been involved, because when there's problems and breakdowns, those things happen. The state cannot give permission for people to marry anymore. They can give a baby permission to be born, but they can recognize and protect the entity of marriage between one man and one woman.
So we would say, even though you and I, Cal Zastrow, object to statutory marriage in concept because it's a form of theft by the state against the people, where they're told they can't exercise a common law right, we would say, okay, they have stolen it, but now that they've stolen it, let them reflect a biblical order, allowing only a man and a woman to marry.
Right, and they've way overstepped their bounds, because the state Constitution defines what marriage is, and will protect and uphold that against fraud things. The federal court needs to, in the Obergefell decision, sir, you said that you agree that they ruled correctly. They did not stick within the constitutional confines. Instead, they quoted Cicero and they referred to Confucius. I have a big problem when courts quote and cite sources and people like that, instead of sticking to their enumerated powers and issuing their rulings based upon what their job is in the Constitution.
This is David Tulis. We're talking with Cal Zastrow from Bay City, Michigan, here to help Tennesseans bring about an affirmation of the Constitution. It's called the Tennessee Natural Marriage Defense Act, sponsored by Beavers Pody. It's called the Beavers Pody Bill, if you need a shorthand reference to that. Now, Cal, you're operating on a presupposition that there is a law, there is a kind of a human law, and that law is called the doctrine of the lesser magistrates. It arises in great form as an argument from the Reformation, but it's really a biblical argument, and there are precedents for it even prior to the state of Israel, even in ancient times. What is this doctrine of the lesser magistrate? And let's give me your answer in terms of Bill Knowles. Bill Knowles here in Howland County is our county clerk, and he violated his oath of office, I think. I would like to suggest that in yielding to the Poofter mudslide. What is Bill Knowles' authority? What does he have authority to do as a clerk? Tell about this doctrine in terms of his office here in Hamilton County.
Okay, Bill Knowles has taken an oath to God. He swore to God to uphold the Constitution, to uphold the law, and to uphold the Constitution of Tennessee. He swore an oath to God to do that. And so what happens is the Supreme Court comes along and says, we order you, or our opinion is you should break that oath and go with our opinion. You should break the law and go with our thing. What we're asking him to do is to stand and do what's right, to obey the Constitution, to continue to do what's right. That's what we're asking.
Well, he might get sued. He might get sued, Cal Zastrow. Someone might sue him.
That's right. And also the Supreme Court might say that we suspend the law of gravity, that our opinion is more stronger than that. We order you to jump off the Grand Canyon, and we're going to sue you, and we're going to send federal marshals if you don't obey our opinion. That's where he's not alone. That's where the exciting thing about this bill is one county clerk may get sued by the feds or have problems with that. But then the exciting thing is the whole state of Tennessee, and hopefully the churches and the people of Tennessee will rally around whoever gets picked on by the feds on this.
Well, let's say that Hamilton County indeed had a godly and fearful county clerk. What would be the duty of the sheriff, Jim Hammond?
The sheriff should protect all citizens under their jurisdiction that are innocent. So if the sheriff knows that people are coming to kidnap a little child, or federal marshals are coming to unlawfully kidnap a county clerk, it's the sheriff's job to defend those people. And it's we the people's job to stand with them and show
with
up.
Both of them, because here in Hamilton County, both Bill Knowles, the clerk, and Sheriff Hammond, Sheriff Jim Hammond, are elected. They are constitutional officers.
That's correct. They are elected, and upon before beginning of their duties, they swore an oath to God. That's not just saying, okay, I'll try. They said they will obey the Constitution. They did not swear an oath to obey court opinions. They swore an oath to uphold the law.
Well,
certainly they're not doing that.
When you bring that up, that there's something I wanted to suggest to the listener. The oath of office is important. It's not just something that's pro forma, that's done just for appearances. It means something. When does it mean something? It means it's important when there is a threat to the Constitution through that office. And so at the very point where the threat is the greatest, here on what is marriage, the clerk has to stand, not on unimportant things so much, but where it's important. Here, there's a challenge to his duty. The duty is you record lawful marriages. You declare in the record that this man and this woman are lawfully married. And here now we have an opinion that says, well, you can say that two men are married and record that. You can actually record a legal document in our county called a license that says two men can marry. How can that be done in good faith by a man, even a man who's not a Christian, who takes that oath? How does that work?
Well, they can't uphold their oath and continue to do that any more than someone can bring in their taco and say, I want a marriage license for me and my taco. You cannot do that. That's why we elect people and we expect them to follow the Constitution. We are a nation to be ruled by law, not by lawless opinions, not by dictators, not by gangs of bandit warlords that threaten and bully us.
So no one in public office, Cal Zastrow, here in Tennessee to help this pro-marriage effort, no one who takes an oath of office should do so lightly. He should know that God is going to hold him to what he promises to do. And that is what?
They have taken the oath to uphold the Constitution, to obey the law, to do what their duties prescribe, to be a public servant that way, not to make decisions that violate that oath.
Now, are there any legislators, Cal Zastrow, in the Chattanooga area whose constituents need to hear from those constituents about this measure? Are there any? What's happening in the legislature right now?
Well, what's happened is the bill 1412, the Tennessee Natural Marriage Defense Act, that is coming up for a subcommittee hearing next Wednesday. In fact, out of East Hamilton County is a Representative Carter, and he is on that subcommittee. And we would just invite people to contact him and respectfully ask him to uphold the law, uphold the Constitution, and support this bill. That's what we're asking him to do.
Say something about the bill and what the contents are. It runs several pages. It's kind of a history. What are some of the historical precedents for this doctrine of the lesser magistrate? In the view of this bill, the lesser magistrate is the state of Tennessee itself, as against the good people in Washington. What's the history of this idea?
You're generous with calling him good. The history of this is, for instance,
I don't want my listener to hate them.
Right. We're not to hate people, especially those that profess to be Christians. We're to love people and help to educate them of the right way. The history of this, in a real brief summary, is when the U.S. federal court issued their Dred Scott decision in the 1800s, saying that African Americans, Black Americans, that they were not guaranteed rights because they were not considered persons. Okay. Immediately, the Supreme Court of Wisconsin and the legislature of the state of Wisconsin said, we will not recognize that, and we will continue to treat these people as persons with all their lawful rights.
That was 1854.
1854 was the Dred Scott decision. And so they just did what's right. They said, your opinion is wrong, and your opinion is not constitutional and is not lawful, and we will continue to do what's right. And they did.
And the bill goes on to say the Wisconsin legislature back in those times, the 1850s, in response, passed a series of resolutions denouncing the actions of the United States Supreme Court as, quote, an arbitrary act of power without authority, void, and of no force, and urging, quote, positive defiance by the states as the, quote, rightful remedy. So your suggestion is that this bill brings to the mind of Tennessee's representatives the duty they have to the law.
That's right. A positive, and I would add one adjective in there, peaceful. Positive, peaceful defiance. We're not going to cooperate with them in their lawlessness. We are not going to be lawbreakers with them. We are going to just simply uphold the law here. That's what we're asking people to do. Uphold the law, do what's right, obey your oath of office, and let's see what happens from this. Let's see if Tennessee leads the entire nation in coming back to lawful liberty.
It's interesting, Cal Zastrow, how one person can do this. Often one person, as in the overthrow of Ceausescu in Romania, came from one minister who refused to do something demanded by the state. And he was surrounded by his members of his church and then the people in the town. And finally, there was a kind of a counter-revolution against that total surveillance state with its jails and its torture chambers. And Ceausescu was slain by the people at some point. One man often is the start of it. So one man standing on principle at that moment, really entirely alone.
More important than that, Pastor Laszlo up in Timișoara, Romania, when the secret police were coming to get him, it was more than one man. It was one man who led one church. Okay, it was his church that came and peacefully surrounded him, peacefully interposed between the tyrants and the innocent person, the innocent pastor. And then when that's where the Romanian Revolution started, was when one man stood and one church stood.
But I really think, Cal Zastrow, what's proposed here in this bill by May Beavers and Mark Pody, the Beavers-Pody bill, it's really not revolutionary. It's barely, you could say in a way, it's counter-revolutionary, and it's really, these interpositions are very mild. There's great mildness in this idea of the doctrine of the lesser magistrate.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, we will wear you out with our ability to suffer. We will defend our rights, and we will do it peacefully, and we will suffer until we get them. Now, all county clerks here in Tennessee have abandoned the law, have abandoned their duty, have abandoned their rights, and we're calling them to come back and do that, and we'll say the state of Tennessee will stand with you in cooperating with that. We also invite people to come up next Tuesday. We're having a rally at noon in front of the state capitol. Representative Mark Pody and the other co-sponsors of the bill will be on board to speak to us.
Is there a website that my listener can go to?
Yes, please go to courtscannotmakelaws.com/Tennessee for all the exact details of what's coming up.
Here's the website again, courtscannotmakelaws, plural.com, and there's /Tennessee. So you can find out,
yep.
So you can find out there about what's going on. And that is an event that is coming up on Wednesday. Well, the event is Tuesday.
The rally is Tuesday, and the subcommittee
in Nashville
is Wednesday in Nashville. So we invite people to come to both if they're able to, and be a part of history. Let's do it. Let's lead the nation in upholding the Constitution against this lawless tyranny.
One man can do a lot. One man, and you, my listener, maybe are that man. Representative Carter might need to hear from you. Do give him a call. Don't think that this is a matter of indifference. Thanks, Cal Zastrow.
All right. Thanks for having me on. Bless you.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. From all of us here at Hot News Talk Radio, thank you for patronizing our sponsors. It's important that you support people that support and advertise with Hot News Talk Radio, so we can continue to deliver the outstanding programs that you desire. And if you'd like to advertise on Hot News Talk Radio, you can email us at hotnewstalkradio@gmail.com. That's hotnewstalkradio@gmail.com. Or call 423-458-5563. That's 458-5563.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
I love my Flex loan from Advance Financial. I needed cash, I needed it fast, and I didn't want to get a payday loan. My Flex loan from Advanced Financial is not a payday loan. It's a line of credit. I only pay for the cash I need, and I only pay for the time that I need it. There's no lump sum payment. My Advanced Financial Flex loan is an open line of credit, and I can get cash anytime I need it.
Visit one of our 24/7 locations and get the cash you need today. Advanced Financial. Welcome.
Don't be a victim. Arm yourself today at Carter Shooting Supply and Indoor Range, offering the finest selection of personal firearms and ammo, especially the hard-to-find ammunition. You know the police can't protect you. They show up after the crime is committed. The ability to protect yourself, your family, and when called upon, your nation is enshrined in the United States